The nuclear crisis in Japan is taking a turn for the worse. Japan's Nuclear Safety Agency has raised the severity rating at the Fukushima Daiichi plant to a 7. Now, that is the highest level and the same rating as Chernobyl. Officials say the amount of radiation spewing from the plant is a threat to human health and to the environment.
This is the moment Japan's nuclear disaster began. A giant tsunami wave crashes into the Fukushima Daiichi power plant, seriously damaging the building's reactors.
2011, an earthquake in Fukushima triggered an unexpected 14-meter-high tsunami that disabled the AC power in Units 1, 2, and 3 of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. After cooling reactors shut down, and fuel tanks for emergency diesel generators were carried away, pressure valves were released in an effort to cool down the reactor containers. Hydrogen explosions began to occur, damaging the facilities and exposing the surrounding environments to large amounts of radiation. This figure shows a map of the distance in which the radiation in the air caused by the hydrogen explosions traveled from the city of Hirosaki to Fukushima, and the amounts of radiation that was exposed into the air.
This next figure shows the early, intermediate, and late stages of indirect and direct radiation exposure to the body. In the early stages, indirect radiation exposure leads to primary damage of molecules, while direct exposure leads to a reaction with living molecules. In the intermediate stage, the indirect exposure and direct exposure both lead to secondary reactions and molecular changes. In the late stages, indirect exposure leads to metabolism mutations and delayed damage such as cancer and leukemia. The late stages of direct exposure lead to metabolism changes, chemical changes, cell death, and eventually death of an entire living body.
DNA is the most important target for radiation when causing overall effects on the body. When the body is exposed to radiation, the exposure can cause cell unrepaired or misrepaired damage, or a lethal mutation that can result in the death of the cell. Although there are many types of radiation-induced DNA damage, double-stranded breaks are believed to cause chromosomal aberrations, and somatic cell mutations are believed to be responsible for tumorigenesis, or the production or formation of small tumors. It was estimated that if workers at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant were exposed to 100 MSV of radiation, there would be approximately a 20.5% cancer mortality rate. Although this does not include the cancer risk of the emergency workers and public living in the area around the Fukushima Daiichi power plant.
Although exposure to high doses of radiation can have a fatal effect on the body, there are some preventive methods and radiation modifiers that can be used to counteract the exposure. First, protector chemicals that can be given prior to the exposure of radiation can protect against future radiation injury. Iodine tablets can be taken to prevent the absorption of radioactive iodine. Amphosphenius is the only drug backed by the FDA for use at protecting against radiation as a radiation modifier. There are very few mitigators or chemicals emitted at exposure that have been proven effective. Some natural treatment options are as melatonin, which protects against ionizing radiation with very low toxicity to the body. Currently, there have been no acute radiation injuries observed among the people involved in the Fukushima Daiichi accident. However, there is still fear among the exposed of later stage radiation effect, such as tumorigenesis and cancer. The final biological impact of Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident will not be known until the future.
Happened yet here at the Fukushima reactor complex. However, this nuclear crisis has more twists and turns than Chernobyl did. At least we knew what we had with Chernobyl. It was a bad reactor accident, a total meltdown, and it occurred right away. With Fukushima, it always seems like they're going to stabilize, and then it gets worse.